Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. As always, it's NMeade here, and a very happy new year to you all. It's time to kick off the new year by catching up with the last quarter of 2021 with the world record activity from October to December. We got 29 world records that were set across 10 different tracks. This is going to be a long video, but a great one. Let's get started. N64 DK's Jungle Parkway No Glitch was improved on October 6th, with Luke improving his own world record. This beats his previous world record set back in July 2020 by 148 milliseconds with a time of 2:11.117. Kind of hard to believe it has already been that long since Luke set his previous time, which took down Yasha's last standing world record at the time. Luke wanted to hit the God standard on this track, which is subbing 2:11.2, which was the last remaining 3-lap God standard that wasn't hit yet. For those who don't know, there are different standards for times on all 32 tracks on the players page, which incentivizes players to push their times to meet the different types of standards on each track, starting from beginner standard to God standard. Luke's lap 1 was the weakest link, losing most of his time on the shroom before lap 2. He entered the shroom slightly too late and had a stick exit, which created a wide exit going near the grass. Lap 2 was exceptional, being a new best known split by over 150 milliseconds. Although it had slightly more residual main turbo boost into the lap than normal from the lap 1 shroom exit, this lap was excellent through and through. Luke notes the only major mistake was the re-hop before the first turn, losing around 40 to 50 milliseconds, but the rest was great with an amazing shroom and transition into lap 3. Lap 3 was overall clean with a few turns that could have been done a little bit better, with Luke's example being the spiral turn on this one. Aside from that, Luke played the shroom this lap a bit safe, but ended up getting a stick exit that sent him a bit wide compared to a more optimal exit being in the middle or a bit more on the left, and ultimately believes he may have gotten a better time with a small amount of air out of the cave. You can tell the difference more comparing a strong cave exit on Luke's lap 2 versus his lap 3. Sometimes you can get so unlucky on these cave exits that you're almost forced into the grass on the right and can lose your run altogether. This mushroom is infamously the reason why a lot of time trialers, including myself, regard this one as one of the more annoying and difficult tracks to play, especially at a high level, as playing the shroom even a fraction of a percent safe can lose so much time. Luke's current best pace is a 43.762 and a 43.571, which failed into the mushroom on lap 3, which after being corrected in Dolphin with even a fairly weak last shroom, still ended up being a 2:10. Luke wants to put a bit more time into the track to see if he could produce anything further, with a 2:10 being in the crosshair for Luke. The paces and splits are there clearly, so maybe we will see the first 2:10 during 2022. Well done, Luke, and good luck for your future sessions here. GCN Peach Beach No Glitch saw 3 improvements during October to December, with all 3 coming from KC improving upon his own world record. On October 9th, KC improved his time by 35 milliseconds with a time of 1:12.694, being the first 1:12.6 on this category. Almost 2 weeks later, on October 22nd, KC improves with a 1:12.686, beating his previous world record by 8 milliseconds. As fate would have it, exactly 2 months later on December 22nd, Casey had another 8 millisecond improvement with a time of 1:12.678. A common theme among Casey's 3 new improvements were the lap 3s had their own mistakes that held all 3 runs from either being a low 1:12.6 or even a 1:12.5, which we will see discussing each run. Casey's best lap 1 would be in the 1:12.694, being a 23.886, which 23.8 lap 1s aren't very common for Casey, and proved to be a strong entrance into his lap 2, which notably had a half chain wheelie and a bad alignment into the first turn, losing some time, preventing a faster mid 25.0 lap. Casey's 25.700 lap 3 of his 1:12.694 was a good split in general, but partially disappointing for Casey. Despite the half chain wheelie, it allowed a perfect alignment for an optimal curb ride, didn't have to do any wheelie nudges to get onto the curb, which yielded around a 40 to 50 millisecond time save. Unfortunately, the turn after the shrooms was wide and Casey delayed his wheelie too much, resulting in a bad alignment for the last turn. The last turn also endured a bad alignment into the finish line, with another 50 millisecond time loss altogether at this end section according to Casey, mentioning this run was bittersweet, being happy to finally get a 112.6, but the run felt like a choke because of the ending. The 112.686 would have the slowest lap 1 for all 3 runs Casey drove, but had a strong 25.079 lap 2 with fairly solid driving for Casey, though he feels this was a bit carried by the curb ride in the beginning despite needing a few wheelie nudges for it, but it still saved some time. A half chain wheelie on the beach and air exiting the last turn would be the other notable areas of time loss here. Lap 3 was Casey's strongest lap 3 for all 3 runs, being a 23.687. This was a good split, but at the same time again disappointing for Casey. He didn't go for the curb ride because it was risky with the angle that he had, and as a result we can really see just how much time getting the curb ride can save. All the small details matter when the times driven are this good, and for one of the more simplistic spear tracks, it is kind of bizarre that just taking the beginning of one curve like this can save or lose this much time. After this point, the lap was essentially flawless until the very end. Casey attempted going to the right of the Cataquack, being the first time he's done this maneuver in a completed world record run ever since Cole did this when he reclaimed the world record back in May of 2020. Casey said he did this because he wanted to save as much time as possible over his previous 112.694's awful ending. As we see here, Casey was nearly off-screening the Ghost doing this and was ultimately on pace for a low 112.6. Casey mentions he released his main turbo slightly too late and was angled towards the wall, forcing him to do some harsh wheelie nudges. Casey shares when this last turn is corrected in Dolphin Emulator, this run would have been a 112.618 with a good alignment into the finish line, and further feels that this was a world record choke rather than a new world record. Despite this, Casey feels this was motivating in a way that he almost got a low 112.6 with a pace that he has beaten by over 70 milliseconds makes him believe that he can realistically get a 112.5 here. Lastly, Casey's 112.678 in December had most notably an amazing lap 2 of a 25.056, with Casey commenting that this is a lap you'd see in a 112.5 run, nailing the curb ride and an amazing beach turn, but the ending was improvable, most notably the alignment into lap 3. This lap was still good enough to be within 17 milliseconds of the current best on split of lap 2 of a 25.039. Lap 3 would be Casey's slowest lap 3 with these 3 recent improvements, with unfortunately losing a lot of time in the beginning with a drop chain wheelie, with Casey commenting this was a bit ridiculous to see this on this track in 2021. The drop chain wheelie unfortunately messed up his alignment and had to repeatedly nudge left to avoid the grass. Despite the curb ride, Casey said this didn't save anything because he had to continue wheelie nudging, and summarizes this entire section lost around 80 milliseconds. The rest of the lap was solid, having a great hop onto the last turn and went very tight on the turn, but got airtime on the turn exit, losing time. The saving grace would simply be having a far better alignment into the finish line compared to the 112.686 and save 70 milliseconds over his previous run. Casey hopes to not have a lap 3 choke and a strong run to get his goal of a 112.5 in 2022. He also wants to expand onto other tracks during 2022 as well, as he feels he has proven to himself that he is skilled enough to be involved in the world record scene, and I completely agree. His 3 main goals for 2022 so far is to get a 112.5 on Peach Beach, achieving the world record on Luigi Circuit, and a 119 on Mario Circuit no glitch. He also looks forward to playing N64 Bowser's Castle to complete the 230 there and improve his overall time sheet. I really feel that 2021 was Casey's breakout year, so to speak, with finally succeeding in attaining his first world record, ultimately making that 5 world records in 2021 and securing several different top tier times very high on several worldwide top 10s. I have a strong feeling that 2022 will become Casey's strongest success for time trials with the momentum he has into the year. Job well done in your improvements, KC, and good luck on your sessions during this year, as I am sure you will reach all of your mentioned goals. On October 10th, Logan would improve his own world record by 14 milliseconds with a time of 1:14.406, and improve with a little bit larger of a time cut on December 2nd by 36 milliseconds, securing the first 144.3 with a 144.370. Logan shares the only notable comment for his 144.406 is that this was a filler for securing 10 months in a row having set at least one world record, with his goal being the first person to have set at least one world record in all 12 months of one single year, which he successfully did with his 144.370 in December. Logan's 144.370 would be the outcome after a crazy session for Logan, sharing he thinks this run was on his 8th 2-for-3 box clip run of the session. This world record in particular would slot Logan at 29 world records set in 2021, tying himself with both Brendan and Fox for setting the most amount of world records in a year. Logan had his most successful year of time trial in 2021, setting many new records statistics-wise, which we will discuss later on in the video, but an extremely job well done with being the first person to set at least one world record every single month of an entire calendar year. Fun fact at the time of recording this video is that Logan's new time is only 7 milliseconds off the current best known splits, which is pretty funny to see this margin compared to more simplistic tracks, but this will of course be more of a gap when Logan decides to pick this up again in the future, as in the past I do believe Logan has mentioned that a 143 should be possible here long term, and he is of course a player tasked to get such a milestone reached. Well done, Logan. Rainbow Road would see improvements in both the glitch and no glitch categories during October and December of 2021. Starting off on the no glitch side, Kaede improved his previous world record by 15 milliseconds on October 17th with a time of 2:24.650. On December 4th, he improved by a larger margin of 61 milliseconds, securing the first 2:24.5 on this category of Rainbow Road with a time of 2:24.598. It's been a real treat seeing Kaede return to this track after so long and reclaim the world record during August of 2021 after losing it in the beginning of 2019, and deciding to continue his efforts beyond August's improvement. It seems like it's almost a daily occurrence that Kaede is posting at least one new world record fail even after December's improvement too. For those who haven't played the game before or don't actively time trial the game, Rainbow Road no glitch remains Mario Kart Wii's anomaly, being the only 3-lap world record that uses the kart instead of a bike. Watching the different nuances for kart driving and strategies versus normal bike racing is always interesting. Kaede's first improvement of 2:24.650 was a neck and neck battle during lap 3, which ultimately was level with his new run and his former world record into the last zipper before the finish line. Such tiny optimizations like how you take the turn into the zipper and the alignment crossing the finish line helped yield the time save required for his improvements. Kaede's 2:24.598 was an epic run featuring an almost new best known split on lap 2 and a new overall best known split on lap 3 at the time of his run being set. In Kaede's video description, he notes lap 1 was quite late, but a miracle happened in laps 2 and 3. Finally, it reached 2:24.5, next is 2:24.4. I am always so excited to see when older players come back and successfully reclaim their former world records, let alone be so clearly driven like Kaede to operate on all cylinders and wanting to push the limits even more. Kaede's lap 1 would be the slowest lap 1 in a world record run here ever since his own world record he set in 2016, being the first sub 2:25 here. Insane for his lap 2 to be a near new best known split and lap 3 ultimately being a new best known split and a world record run no less. On the one hand, it could be frustrating to have an improvement with a glaring lap like that, but at the same time, a slower than average lap 1 allows you to let go of all of your nerves and just do a full send on laps 2 and 3, which is always fun to see what can happen from that. Kaede's personal best splits give a 2:24.300 flat, and with all of Kaede's near daily runs he posts on Twitter, I am sure Kaede will roll up with a new improvement in no time. Congratulations to your success here in 2021, Kaede, and good luck for your sessions in 2022. One of the most surprising world records set was on October 18th on this track. Logan improved his own glitch world record here by over 2 seconds with a time of 2:10.051, barely missing out on the track's first sub 2:10. It took so long for this track to be glitched in real time, with Arthur being the first person to do so back in January of 2021. Logan becomes the only other player to successfully pull this off in 2021, claiming the world record from Arthur back in April of 2021, with his previous 2:12.143. I thought surely there would be no real reason to try and come back and improve this compared to other track endeavors Logan could possibly go on, but the story of this time was a fun one. From how much of a build-up there was for this to be pulled off in real time just once, after thousands of attempts by many players, to Logan claiming this in April of 2021, on this day of October 18th, Logan set this time in literally 3 attempts. He was time trialing GCN Mario Circuit in a session, and quite simply started to play this and nailed the glitch in 3 attempts. Logan comments after the glitch success, he still drove it fine despite not touching the Quacker in general since his April world record here. The majority of Logan's time save over his previous world record would come from a faster glitch overall, along with actually getting a full start boost of all things compared to his previous time. Logan still did good work to save around 700 extra milliseconds across laps 2 and 3 with better driving from his previous record. Everyone loves a good story, and this certainly qualifies as one. Absolutely crazy to do this in literally 3 attempts on this day in this category of all categories. Job well done, Logan. Good luck to you on this track if you do any of these sporadic break sessions during 2022. We had more glitch activity, this time on GCN Waluigi Stadium. On October 28th, Hunter reclaims the world record from Logan by 322 milliseconds and becomes the first person to get a 139 on the track overall, with a time of 139.789. 3 days later, on October 31st, Hunter had an even bigger time cut of 351 milliseconds with a time of 139.438. Hunter did not have much to comment on for his runs, but is very happy to reclaim the world record, being very satisfied to see a 139 now on this track and glad that there are no major mistakes in his current run being the 139.438. His 139.438 would feature a slower lap 1 than his 139.789, but made up significant time on his driving for laps 2 and 3 versus his 139.789. With setting the fastest one shimmer for a no glitch lap and a world record run so far with his 37.636 on lap 3. For some fun stats, Hunter is still hard at work going for the first 2 for 3 glitch run here, and he is up to 62 attempts at a second glitch now. Seeing where this track has ended up so far after so many potential RTA glitch iterations is incredible. I actually made a video on the history of glitching this track in real time last year, which I still feel is one of the best videos I've ever made to date. That will be linked down below if you'd like to learn more about the rich journey of glitching this track in real time. Hunter's closing remarks for his improvements is a dedicated thanks to both Jaden and Caleb for their constant support. Always a positive thing to hear the backing of your friends and peers towards goals that you may have. Congrats on your successful achievements during 2021 on this track, Hunter, and good luck to you for the future sessions during 2022. One of the most overdue world record improvements would come at the beginning of November on November 5th. All of Blake's efforts on DK Snowboard Cross would finally pay off with an improvement by 58 milliseconds over his old record with a 145.210. Blake made his big return to the game and reclaiming the world record here back in January of 2020 after losing it to Connor in November of 2017. Since then, Blake had another world record improvement almost exactly 1 year after his first one in January of 2021. The purpose of explaining this storyline in particular is that ever since Blake reclaimed the world record in January of 2020, he has been so diligent with his attempts for essentially 2 years, with some appropriate breaks in there I'm sure, but Blake streams the vast majority of his attempts on his Twitch stream. DK Snowboard Cross is one of the hardest tracks in the game to time trial, being one of the most tech heavy, meaning there are many hard strategies and techniques to pull off every single lap. After the landing from the cannon each lap, it is almost non-stop controller inputs, with things exponentially increasing in difficulty until the apex of the Jimmy Cut, where you drift off the highest ledge of the first chasm and time an extremely precise hop on the lip before the second chasm to preserve as much speed as possible to quickly traverse the second chasm, where you ultimately end the lap with difficult optimizations of the wheelie zipper strategy and trying to optimize this last corner trick being infamous for many tragic fails. Blake shares that he had to go away for a while, but he is back now, and better than ever. Blake would set this world record on a Discord call with Logan at 3 AM. The run was a beautiful disaster, and recovering after the failed moguls on lap 2 was the most clutch thing I've ever done in my many years of playing Mario Kart. This world record is good, but I will improve it soon, and you can watch me do so on my Twitch livestream, streaming almost every night at 12 AM EST. My ultimate goal has always been a 144, but maybe I shouldn't stop there. After all, my best splits currently equal a time of 143.761. This track still has a long way to go. Very encouraging words there from Blake, not losing sight of his drive and motivation after so many sessions on this difficult track. It is hard to verbally portray just how difficult and impressive these runs are on this track, especially in relation to how far off it is to the best known splits of almost 1.5 seconds of a gap. I highly encourage you all to watch Blake's streams when you get a chance, as I think visually watching attempts and seeing just how many things can go wrong and how hard things are to optimize will be the best showcase of how impressive any improvement is here. I think I am one of many of us at this point greatly rooting for Blake to get a run he has deserved to hit after so long. I'll go as far as to say that I wouldn't be surprised at all if Blake ever directly jumps to a very low 144 or even a 143 in one giant improvement. Time will tell for 2022, of course. Big congrats to you, Blake, for getting rewarded with at least one more improvement during 2021 to make your efforts worthwhile, and best of luck in your future sessions here. Another surprising record was set on the same day of November 5th. DS Desert Hills Glitch would see an improvement by Justin. Justin beats Logan's previous world record by 26 milliseconds and clutches out the track's first 130 with a 130.990. Justin shares it was quite satisfying to barely achieve a 130 after being stuck at a 131.0 for a while. The run itself was described as mild, no tentative mistakes, but also not too strong at the same time. The most notable thing about the run is going to the right of the tree before the glitch on every lap, as well as utilizing a somewhat new strategy on lap 2, which is clearing the entire lake and sand while maintaining his drift when landing. Justin originally planned on going to the right of the tree only on lap 3 because the fire snakes were hard to deal with on record pace, but he noticed that the strategy didn't make the glitch that much harder. In addition to the strategy being slightly faster on average, he started doing it in all of his attempts of the glitch. Justin innovated the strategy of keeping the drift after clearing the entire lake and sand. Justin shares he thought of it as a good alternative to the quote-unquote lucky glitch, which is clipping too low that you land in the out of bounds section, but in the out of bounds section you hit a very specific part of it that you end up not actually triggering the out of bounds plane. An example of this being done in a world record run would be David's 131.107 on lap 2, which I have linked down below. As the name Lucky Cut implies, it is a very challenging and lucky strategy which consequently saves a lot of time since you avoid slowing down in the sand. The strategy Justin implemented was to negate the challenging features of the lucky glitch. Justin says it can save around the same amount of time when done fast, but still requires a good amount of luck to stick to the road after clearing the sand. Since the sand slopes upwards while the main road slopes downwards, it can be challenging to stick to the main road which is required to execute this strategy. However, the main benefit of the strategy is you can attempt it after every successful wall clip, while the lucky glitch requires a very specific wall clip to have a chance at it. This strategy technically isn't faster, but Justin says it certainly gives more opportunities for time save. I would like to highlight the talent that is strategy, discovery, and implementation, which I find is an incredibly underrated and underappreciated skill and general mindset to have. Time and time again, Justin has done this for both human time trials as well as tasks, from no glitch strategies to outwardly breaking different tracks wide open. I feel like most speedrunning communities thrive and succeed the most when there is a healthy mix of players who truly optimize general game mechanics and techniques, and players who have such a keen eye and dedication to glitch and strategy discovery and pioneering, which benefits both the task and real-time speedrunners. I think Mario Kart Wii as a whole has definitely followed that trend over the years, especially in the past few years of the game, with Justin being one of those players who has done both of these things. Justin discovered a quote-unquote backwards strategy which stems off of an online strategy which you can get last place items while practically being in first place. Troy actually made a video on this a few months ago, which I will link in the description for you guys to watch too. Justin shares there is a backwards shortcut that would utilize a mushroom or another boost item, but he actually found out that you can do this without a shroom, therefore being a viable strategy in time trials. Justin wanted to perform this in a time trial because it looks super unique, but it was substantially harder than the original lake shortcut. Justin shares he has done this dozens of times legitimately, but performing it after 2 wall clips in a fast run was a bit of a hard task. This is technically the fastest strategy with the exception of the shroomless lake cut, which is borderline impossible in real time according to Justin. So he'd love to see this happen one day in the record. This combined with the somewhat new lake cut strategy Justin did makes a 129 very feasible, and a 128 should technically be possible too according to Justin. It will truly be an epic feat when someone can actually pull this off in real time. It will be one of the most unique 3-lap world records for any category in the entire game in my opinion. We can always count on Justin for not only pulling through with impressive records when he does real-time time trials, but pulling through with thinking outside the box with seemingly endless innovations from strategies to glitches. Job well done, Justin, and good luck on all your time trial endeavors during 2022. This next section is solely dedicated to all things GCN DK Mountain. Logan went crazy on both categories of this track during November, so let's start off with the glitch records. Logan took down his longest standing world record of his own on this category during September 2021. Logan improved 3 different times on the glitch category in November. An improvement of 137 milliseconds on November 7th would yield a time of 158.349. The same day yielded another smaller improvement of 14 milliseconds with a time of 158.335. Lastly, 4 days later on November 11th, Logan again had a bigger improvement of 202 milliseconds with a time of 158.133, getting very close to the track's first 157. For Logan, he simply puts his first 2 improvements on the same day were similar to each other, with his 158.133 having bad bridges on laps 1 and 2, but besides that, it was a very solid run overall. Apart from the glitch recovery optimizations every lap being a given here, the absolute biggest annoyance for this category will always be the bridge. You have no mushroom to compensate with the chain wheelie and alignment into the following lap, so you're at the mercy of good luck on the bridge having minimal to no bounces, being able to actually get a chain wheelie out, and a good enough alignment into the first counter drift turn of the following lap with minimal wheelie turns. Laps can absolutely be wrecked with this few second section alone. Fun fact is that if you actually drive this bridge backwards, it is completely flat with no bounces. It is still puzzling to me why Nintendo decided to do such a cruel thing to this track. I guess we'll never find out why. A fun detail between Logan's last 2 improvements here would be that Logan ties his first lap of a 39.495 in both runs. Always cool to see that. I am sure the story of GCN DK Mountain Glitch doesn't end here. I have a feeling we will end up seeing the first 157 during 2022 as a bold prediction here. The current best known splits give a time of 157.476, so it is surely a realistic target that will be hit, with Logan being tasked for the job. Extremely impressive stuff as always, Logan. Let's head now into Logan's no glitch activity here, which starts just 3 days after his last glitch world record. Logan had a total of 4 world record improvements on the no glitch category here during the rest of November. On November 14th, he improved his own world record that was over 2 years old, set back in September of 2019, by 47 milliseconds with a time of 2:05.147. November 19th would see an improvement of 30 milliseconds with a time of 2:05.117. A larger improvement of 98 milliseconds on November 28th would be a new time of 2:05.018, being so close to the first 2:04 on this category. But thankfully on November 30th, Logan does just that, but by a huge margin with an improvement of 243 milliseconds, with a finishing time of 2:04.775. This came as yet another surprise of a world record being defeated, with Logan's time here standing for over 2 years, with Logan beating both of his 2019 world records here during 2021 on both categories. The 2:05.147 came from a glitch session Logan was having, and shares that this was a really unexpected improvement to him as well. What's really impressive is that he beat his former world record, which uses the far faster but much better mini turbo shortcut strategy, with not using it at all. This shortcut, when done optimally, saves a truckload of time, well upwards of at least 300 to maybe 400 milliseconds per 1 lap by my estimation at peak optimization. In comparison, Logan shares his next improvement of the 2:05.117 was carried by the mini turbo cut compared to his previous 2:05.147, and his 2:05.018 was a solid run until the main turbo cut. Having a 41.721 and 41.559 no main turbo cut run is an incredibly fast pace for not using this strategy, really showing that a 2:04 is perfectly reasonable at the top tier not using this main turbo strategy at all, although of course being very difficult. The end of his 2:05.014 shows what can happen when the main turbo cut can go wrong, with having a wide exit, having to traverse very awkwardly around the final fence to get to the bridge with this transition, losing so much time for what could have otherwise been a strong first 2:04 here. The 2:04.775 showcases the difference of a superb normal shortcut versus a main turbo cut gone wrong. The 2:05.018 shoots far ahead but had the unfortunate exit, with Logan going from being behind to beating the time by almost a full quarter of a second. Logan said he is extremely pleased with this run. All around there were no massive mistakes, and the quality of the laps were all decent, being really happy to have sub 2:05 by this much. At this point, beating this record with no main turbo cuts isn't entirely out of the question, with the best splits for the no main turbo cuts being a 2:04.527, but it seems far more likely at this point most records from here on out will feature at least one or more main turbo cut in a run, with the best known splits for using it all 3 laps equaling a 2:03.966. Incredibly impressive work all around, Logan, far exceeding the standards that I am sure many of us thought these records were at prior to November and where they stand currently. Best of luck to you for your future grinds on both categories of this track during 2022. Koopa Cape would have improvements in both categories during November and December. On November 16th, Luke reclaims the world record from Jung Woo by 14 milliseconds with a time of 2:17.937. Jung Woo beat Luke's previous world record here back in May of 2021, being the first no glitch 3-lap world record with a Wii wheel in many years, and the first Korean world record as well. Luke's Koopa Cape improvement will slot him up back to double-digit world records of holding 10 at once since May of 2021. And as of the day of him setting this world record, he has held the most world records in this game for a total of 1,032 days, including tied times. Luke shares he has been wanting to reclaim the world record here for a while, since he always knew the track was very far off his limit, and states it still is now. Lap 1 was decent overall for Luke, with the most notable sections being no slip drift after the brown ramp, a weird slip drift before the tunnel entry, which didn't lose that much even though it meant leaving the water stream, and mentions the last third of the track from the start of the tunnel to the end being fairly improvable, losing most of his time versus Jung Woo on the pipe clip to the finish line. Lap 2 started with a twist half chain wheelie and a fairly high ramp trick, but saves much time versus Jung Woo with nailing a clean trick landing. He did not get a slip drift after the brown ramp again, but this worked out better for him this lap compared to lap 1. But unfortunately had some slowdown from hitting the grass on the turn before the water stream. Lap 2 featured a clean shroomless cut, saving time, having a good rest of the lap until needing to compensate for the zapper cycles, sharing that he has not managed to cleanly beat this zapper yet, but he has come pretty close. The zappers here are probably one of the most underrated obstacles to maneuver around for this track. Even though you're traveling faster while in the water stream, any deviation from optimal driving here is going to cost time more than you expect, especially at the end of the water stream if you ever need to hop out of the way of the last 2 zappers. If you end up needing to do that, you aren't at full speed exiting the water stream, and the time loss can become far more apparent when you're comparing different ghosts. This is why you see these recent wreckers needing to specifically hold their main turbo in order to get a clean shot past the zappers, as to not unnecessarily hop out of the zappers and lose more time than it costs to wait a tiny bit longer to get a proper alignment. Lap 3 had a strong beginning despite some small wheelie nudges, followed by a minor 30 to 40 millisecond time loss with some air near the second brown ramp. Luke's lead was still by a considerable amount, having Jungwoo off screen until the water stream in the tunnel, with some incremental time loss until the very end, but Luke kept composure and clutched out the improvement to reclaim Koopa Cape no glitch. Luke mentions there are still the unused strategies that could yield a mid to even low 216 long term, and feels the track has a very long way to go. These strategies include the quote-unquote detached method entering the tunnel, which Jungwoo does for 1 lap in his former world record, as well as the wall wrap around both the first and second tunnel turns, which can also help serve as ways to maneuver the zapper cycles. Although mentioning doing the wall wrap on the second tunnel turn is much harder than the first turn in his opinion. It'll be fun to see what 2022 brings on this track, as a battle here would be really fun to watch, especially if these strategies become staples that players choose to go for in all of their attempts. I think in particular the past 1 to 2 years has really seen a big jump in players opting to go for the absolute hardest strategies that some seemed previously almost impossible to do in real-time runs, and have now become the standard of gameplay for having any further improvements on different categories of tracks. Congrats to you, Luke, for reclaiming the world record here on Koopa Cape at the end of 2021, and best of luck on your future sessions here. Another big surprise during the end of 2021 would be another player successfully pulling off the Koopa Cape glitch humanly. None other than Logan would become the second player to pull off this feat and claims the world record from Justin in the process. On December 14th, Logan beats Justin's world record by over 3.5 seconds, with barely missing out on a 2:10 with a 2:11.015. Logan says this run was about what he was expecting, having a decent glitch entry into the blocks, decent seam driving inside of the wall, a good turnaround, and shroom. The driving thereafter on laps 2 and 3 were average as expected, with nothing risky being done. It will be with landing this time that Logan becomes the first person to successfully pull off all the real-time viable glitches in the game, as well as becoming the first person to set 30 world records in a year, the most ever in a single year excluding 2008. With this immense accomplishment, I was very curious to inquire on what Logan felt to be the hardest glitch to do in the game. I personally felt it had to be Koopa Cape for the multiple sections and strategies required to get this done with how precise it is altogether. Logan says he would have ranked this track as the second hardest glitch in the game. In his opinion, N64 Bowser's Castle is the hardest tech and precision wise, comparing it to Koopa Cape, which has a hard glitch entry, but after that is on the easy side for Logan. Biggest of congratulations and props have to be sent Logan's way for having a truly exceptional year of time trial under his belt, for accomplishing so much during the 2021 year of Mario Kart Wii time trial. 30 overall world records, the first player to set at least one world record in all 12 months of a calendar year, continuing to optimize his own world records, and completing being able to pull off all the real-time viable glitches in the game. The dedication to the game and the craft of time trial is incredibly clear, and dedication like this really helps to keep the game alive and progressing. Hats off to you for an insane 2021 year, and good luck on the year to come. Just as other tracks had this theme, both categories of Grumble Volcano had their respective improvements in November and December 2021. We will start off with the no glitch activity on November 21st, where Barney improved his own previous world record by 22 milliseconds with a time of 151.520. On December 2nd, Barney secured a larger improvement of 136 milliseconds, setting the first 151.3 on this category with a time of 151.384. Barney reclaimed the Grumble Volcano world record back in March 2021 after losing it in December 2018. His previous world record of 151.542 included doing the ending task ramp strategy on lap 3. Barney's 151.520 in November would be the first world record driven with using this strategy on all 3 laps. This strategy is of course much more difficult than the standard mushroom section, and I wanted to see how this had affected Barney's sessions going for this 3-for-3 now. Barney agrees that this has made this track more reset heavy, with a few ways you can fail this strategy. You can fail from having an incorrect line for the cut entry, which is often caused by missing the low jump beforehand, which stops one from doing necessary adjustments. You can actually bounce over the ramp, where you get the huge momentum trick off of entirely, which is an instant reset if that's the case. Lastly, you can encounter micro bounces inside the cut, which can cancel your spin drift hop, and the all-around timing of the hop for this trick altogether. Despite this, Barney chose to continue grinding this out, being successful in this endeavor, nailing 2 3-for-3 task shroom strategy world record runs, and making steady progress to 150 territory. Barney shares he still wants to push for a 150, but it has been harder than he initially thought it would be. He has failed numerous 151.2 and .1 runs, which have ended up dying to the failed low jump on the ramp before the task shroom strategy, or this ending strategy itself. He feels 150 is definitely doable, but it will require strong driving. 6-for-6 important low jumps being the last low jump 3-for-3 and the low jump before the task shroom strategy 3-for-3, and good task mushroom cuts 3-for-3. I have highlighted this in the past, but the mini orange ramps on this track are some of the trickiest to time correctly with getting the low jumps. Both of Barney's newest improvements have their own moments of missing certain orange ramp low jumps, which lose a considerable amount of time, upwards of 100 milliseconds or more per one low ramp missed. And the visual difference of time gain and time loss is substantial. Barney feels the 150 will definitely happen one day for sure, but he has personally taken a break from it for now. I'd say that is a break well earned. This is another perfect example of present day that players are opting to start adding in previously thought either task exclusive strategies or strategies felt to be too hard or inconsistent to implement into human runs. Big props to you, Barney, for seeing it through to go directly to 3-for-3 runs from your previous 1-for-3 world record. Best of luck to you in future sessions when you decide to return to this track. We had some major activity on Grumble Volcano Glitch during December. A newcomer to the world record scene would not only set his first world record in the game, he would set 3 world records during December on this track of all tracks and categories to set one on. Australian player Jiren sets his first world record in the game on December 3rd, beating Niyaki by 15 milliseconds with a time of 15.947. On December 20th, Jiren continues his conquest with a huge improvement for this category of 120 milliseconds, setting the first 15.8 with a 15.827. 2 days later on December 22nd, Jiren sets another improvement of 32 milliseconds, with the first 15.7 being a 15.795. Jiren becomes Mario Kart Wii's first player to set a world record in the game, being younger than the game itself, being born after the game's release. Jiren's journey is a really interesting one to learn. Jiren has been grinding this on and off since November 2019, with constant fails and giving up multiple times, then coming back to the track just to PB once, then giving up again. After his 16.466 PB, he thought that was it for him. Around early November, he was bored and tried some runs here and there for fun as a time burner, just to see if he still had it in him if he ever wanted to pick up the track again. He ended up quickly getting a new personal best split on lap 1 after 30 minutes, and had the rush and excitement he had like it was 2019 again for him, sharing he always thought in the back of his mind of, what if I did get the world record? But this time the feeling was different. that he knew he was going to get there. He thought he had the potential to, and so he tried, knowing it would be difficult, but with enough grinding it could happen. From November 11th to November 17th, he eventually jumped down to 16.0 territory with literally a 16.001 time. It was with this time he thought he would write his name in Mario Kart Wii history. On this day of December 3rd, after 2 hours into his session, he lands the 15.947. Just before he crosses the line, he believed it was a good enough time for a 15-second time, but not the world record. Just simply getting the sub 16 here. His reaction to his finishing digits sent him in a frenzy to check the leaderboards, making sure he doesn't just react to another second worldwide time, which he has been doing for the past 2 years. He started tearing up, realizing that after 2 years of constant struggle, failure, quitting, and coming back to quit again, he finally did it. After 5 years of playing Mario Kart Wii Time Trials, 2 years of Grumble Volcano Glitch Time Trials, he can officially say he achieved a world record in Mario Kart Wii. Jiren shares he had a mental block and nerves with this track, explaining that a mental block on such a short track like this can be underlooked sometimes, which I certainly agree with as well. You wouldn't think you can get all that nervous on a time trial that literally lasts less than 16 seconds for all 3 laps to be done, but Jiren's insight certainly disproves that. This factor heavily influenced his task entry attempts, as if he is not in the right mindset, he cannot seem to get any good laps. Jiren also says he can control his nerves better because of the numerous fails he has had when going into lap 3 or after failing a great task entry on lap 1. Only getting nerves when he's on a great lap 3 or when he hits the entry he got in his 15.795 run. Commenting he has gotten this level of an entry 30 plus times, and every single one of those times he has gotten nerves. Jiren wanted to explain the biggest difference in Nyaki's runs versus his own, being the task entry to the rock lap 1. Nyaki uses only 1 mushroom, whereas Jiren uses 2. He has tried to mimic the 1 shroommer, but he says he cannot seem to get it. Jiren says he believes that the 1 and 2 shroomers are both viable for world record improvements, as he and Nyaki have both hit solid lap 1s. Speaking of lap 1s, Jiren very recently hit his best lap 1 of a 6.051, which was also a world record fail as well, when sharing some additional feedback. And as of today's upload date, he has since further improved this now to a 6.032 lap 1. Jiren ultimately hit his goal of hitting a 15.7 with his 15.795, and shares his new goal of being a 15.6, which will require a lot of grinding, but he's really happy with his run currently. Jiren's journey was so awesome to learn about. It personally gave me strong nostalgia and reflection on a lot of the same beliefs, emotions, and determination I had before I set my first world record in this game long ago. This has got to be one of the most exciting stories in the world record time trial scene in quite some time, of all time honestly. What Jiren has done is infinitely impressive for many reasons, especially for his first 3 world records being on this track and category out of all things. Nyaki has been the super titan of Grumble Volcano since 2009, having held the world record for almost 85% of the game's history of over 4,200 days, with only King Alex being able to beat him sporadically before the Quacker strategy was discovered. And Nyaki adapted to the strategy 7 months after it was first implemented, and again went undefeated for over 2 years until Jiren's arrival in December 2021. Nyaki has been hard at work himself, seeing world record fails every couple of days on his Twitter too. So I am sure we are going to see exciting activity for a battle on the Rock in 2022. On behalf of the community, I extend a huge congratulations to you, Jiren, for your immense achievements. And in your own words, you have now written your own name in Mario Kart Wii history. Best of luck continuing your diligence and hard work here in 2022. On November 27th, GBA Bowser Castle 3 shortcut would have an improvement by Breakson. Breakson reclaimed the world record from Luke by 44 milliseconds with a time of 1:57.291. Breakson was the first player to successfully implement the shroomless ultra shortcut on lap 1 and a world record run back in October of 2020. Luke reclaimed the world record using the standard 3-for-3 shroom shortcuts, with a very strong time for that strategy. Brayson continues to stick with using the shroomless ultra shortcut for lap 1 and runs, being on the first lap. This allows Brayson to use the save mushroom on the dirt turn near the end of lap 1, saving enough time to drift under the thwomp that is normally blocking this turn on lap 2 if you do not do the shroomless cut on lap 1, and needing to drift around the thwomp otherwise. Lap 1 was awful for Brayson due to having terrible driving, bad low jumps, and a below average shortcut, with also mentioning this was a surprise run near the start of his session, saying the driving was quite bad in this run. Brayson explains that the side trick doing the shroomless cuts are actually intentional, as left side tricks on this ramp shoot you very far forward compared to up tricks, which was very interesting to learn. Brayson had messed up his angle into the last turn and did a very scuffed spin drift to compensate. He said he was banking on having his bike shift to the right by ever so slightly riding on the edge of the cutout gap, but he didn't end up having the alignment, requiring him to yank in his wheelie, losing some time. This was due to the controller grip he was using, adopting a method he was taught by Havoc, which allows him to double mash with both thumbs to increase his success rate with chain wheelies. Brayson shares his motivation for the game in 2021 was at an all-time low, and he was not enjoying having to deal with the chain wheelies on this track during the beginning of this year. After learning Havoc's strategy, he is able to reach mashing speeds of up to 20 or 21 D-pad presses per second, which mostly secures Brayson an 88 km/h drop wheelie at worst, and essentially gives him a 33% chance at a full chain wheelie and a 66% chance of not getting an outright drop chain wheelie. Brayson says the only downsides to this strategy are the fact that it takes around a second to switch his grip from his normal grip to mashing grip, so he can't utilize this on smaller straights like the small chain wheelie just before the dirt patch on laps 2 and 3. The other downside is that both of his thumbs are on the D-pad, making proper twist chain wheelies next to impossible, which we see the byproduct of this on the straight lap 1, with needing to turn much more than desired. Getting double chain wheelies on lap 1 was the only reason he did not reset into lap 2. Lap 2 had average driving for Brayson and only one good low jump. After a terrible shortcut and one full drop chain wheelie and 2 half chain wheelies on the ending straight, he was happy to still get a high 39.1 lap. Lap 3 had very safe driving for Brayson, having 2 good low jumps but bounced on the second one, slowing him down a lot. A very scuffed shortcut required Brayson to lean back and have a very wide recovery. A half chain wheelie on the small straight and very nervous / bad driving for the rest of the lap was acceptable for Brayson, but the last straight was terrible. Brayson said he's 95% sure the first chain wheelie was going to be an 88 km/h drop chain wheelie, but the bounces from the gap made it a much worse full drop chain wheelie. And the last chain wheelie being an 88 km/h drop chain wheelie was very dissatisfying for Brayson. Brayson is overall very happy to get the world record back here, but notes there is a lot more left in the tank. Brayson shares that both he and Logan have both started going for 3-for-3 shroomless ultra shortcut runs, which will result in hopefully a 155 with just average chain wheelies. For the current moment, Brayson says that neither of them are heavily active on this category, as he is getting back into doing coconut mole no glitch runs and has been having a lot more fun with that recently. It sounds like 2022 is going to be another exciting year for time trials, especially for this category of Bowser Castle 3. Job well done to you, Brayson, with continuing the meta shift on this track. Good luck on your future sessions here in the coming year. The last world record to cover will be another unexpected world record at the end of 2021, being Luke improving his own world record on DS Delfino Square. On December 5th, Luke had a massive cut to his own world record by 274 milliseconds, with a time of 2:03.525, getting so close now to being in low 2:03 territory. DS Delfino Square got a massive overhaul at the top tier in July of 2021 after Logan started to implement the shroomless dock shortcut in lap 1 for runs. Luke and Logan traded hands, with Luke ultimately securing the first 2:03 in August with a massive 2:03.799 using 2-for-3 shroomless docks. Luke was trying to attempt this stream as many days in December as possible to quote-unquote destroy the track by getting a 3-for-3 shroomless dock shortcut, which would end up being as a low 2:03 or 2:02, and landed this substantial improvement during December. Lap 1 of his run would only be 23 milliseconds off of the best known split as of the time of his run. He knows the driving before the dock could be improved, and the angle from the shortcut meant he couldn't shroom as early as he would have liked, which cost a little bit of time. Lap 2 would overall be average for Luke, losing a huge amount of time to bounces on the straight along with a drop chain wheelie, and a very wide first turn, with his driving not being as clean as lap 1. Luke's shroomless dock lap 2 landed further right than lap 1, meaning he couldn't shroom as tight and had to delay the shroom even more, but thankfully the rest of the lap went well. Lap 3 was decent for Luke, having a half chain wheelie and nerves, with the whole lap actually being pretty well driven besides the shroom exit, which was very bad, and the last turn. All in all, it was a pretty good run for Luke. He shares his best splits with 3 shroomless docks, only give a 203.1. But if he manages to get an optimal lap 2 and 3, then that sum will go down to at least a 202.6 or a 202.5, with a 40-second lap 1 being possible, alongside up to a 41.1 and beyond for lap 2, and a 40.3 being possible for lap 3. A big congrats to you again, Luke, for truly pushing your limits here after the shroomless dock was implemented, pushing it yourself afterward, and pushing the standard now to do this extremely hard maneuver 3 for 3. I am sure this will be another track to look after during 2022. Best of luck to you in your future sessions, Luke. Ladies and gentlemen, it is on that note that we close the chapter of 2021 Mario Kart Wii Time Trial. With the great surge of activity and the last 3 months of 2021, 101 world records were set in the year of 2021. Being the 4th year in a row, we have had more than 100 world records set. 2021 would also be the year that we surpassed 3,000 world records being set for the game's history. If you are into stats, we have a couple of interesting ones to highlight here. As of the end of the year, 35 out of 51 categories across both glitch/shortcut and no glitch/no shortcut categories were improved during 2021, including the last remaining 2018 world record being taken down, meaning only world records remain from 2019 and onward. The longest lasting world record heading into 2022 is Sosis on GBA Shy Guy Beach, with its 121.496 standing at close to 1,100 days. The longest lasting world record reign heading into 2022 is Cole on Luigi Circuit, being close to 3,100 days. The yearly world record total time sub 46 minutes, with an ending time of 45 minutes, 31 seconds, and 312 milliseconds. 25 players set world records during 2021, with 6 of those 25 players being new players to the world record scene. Luke surpassed Cole in 2021 for being the player who has set the most 3-lap world records in the game's history, sitting at 83 world records hit into 2022. Through and through, 2021 Mario Kart Wii Time Trial has been an exciting and surprising year in many respects, with new strategies and glitches continuing to be discovered and real-time viable strategies off of the more task-exclusive ones being discovered and implemented humanly. After being so active in the world record scene myself as a contender over 10 years ago, I am so happy that the scene is continuing to thrive and expand in the past few years. In particular, after 2013, it really seemed like activity was taking a near permanent dip to a new norm, but things have continued to expand and thrive in the past few years now. It's been over 3 years now covering monthly activity for the game, and I thank you all for coming along for the journey of appreciating and enjoying the reflection on our community's greatest accomplishments. I never imagined so many people who share the same passion and interest as myself with something seemingly so mundane to the outsider looking in. I hope the series continues to allow for appreciation and respect for this different avenue of speedrunning with the many talented players we have in our game, and ultimately our adoration and passion for our favorite game and game series. That is all for today. I wish you all a happy and healthy new year, and here's to an exciting 2022 for the scene. I'll see you all the beginning of February to review the world record activity for January 2022. Take care.